Greetings, everyone! I saw Alien Earth, Episode 1 and 2. Alien Earth is the new television show on FX, continuing on in the storied Alien franchise, which began all the way back in 1979, with my personal favorite movie in the series, the original Alien. Since then, you've had Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, the AVP movies, and whatever the fuck Ridley Scott was doing.
Watch me. I'll do the fingering.
Now, this new show is created by Noah Hawley, who is known for the FX series Legion, which was set in the X-Men universe, and that one was a very experimental and interesting show with a lot of really amazing visuals and kind of inventive ideas. So that's kind of what I was looking for from this new series. Now, episode 1 and 2 came out together, so I'm going to discuss them both together, and I am going to get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the show already, you can go do so, but if you have, you can stick around and listen to what this asshole has to say about it. Yeah, I thought for the most part it was a fairly successful opening to a series. I do have some goods and I do have some bads, but getting into sort of the overall plot initially, this series is focusing on the Prodigy Corporation, which at the start of the show we're informed that Earth is under the control of 4 major corporations, only 2 of which are named, I believe. One is the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, which has been around since the original Alien and kind of been the sort of secondary to almost main antagonist of the franchise. Really, a lot of the problems that happen throughout the various movies are a direct result of Weyland-Yutani wanting to get their slimy little hands on the big stink bug that is the xenomorph, which is an element I've always liked, because the thing about Weyland-Yutani, and especially something that's set up in this show, is that they do have this sort of absolute control over everything. At the start of Alien Earth, we're informed that they have complete control over North and South America, as well as Mars, and even going to the recent Alien Romulus, you see that they have these colonies where they sort of keep these chattel contract workers, and that's an element that's brought up in this too. But this show follows a young girl who is dying of cancer, who is part of a new experiment by this new 5th corporation called the Prodigy Corporation, which is run by the youngest trillionaire ever. And this experiment is to transfer human consciousness into a android body. We're informed in the opening crawl part of the race for immortality through these corporations. The race for immortality involves 3 avenues, which one is the synth that we've known and loved, the milky-filled boys since the first Alien, with Ash and Bishop and Rook in the most recent film. The second is a sort of newly introduced element, which is cyborgs, and that's human beings that have been cybernetically altered or enhanced. We meet a character in this show who is the captain of the USC, or the UNSC Mangonaut, which is the same kind of vessel, or sort of the same kind of vessel as the Nostromo, because they're both Weyland-Yutani vessels, which allows the show to have its nostalgia cake and give us sets pulled directly out of the first Alien movie. And I'll go over a little bit more of those in detail later. But the cyborgs, they seem to have, this guy has like kind of a robot arm that he can pop a sword or a blowtorch out of. But he also seems incredibly devoted to the company that he's working for, to the point of the lives of other people around him being expendable to the company's end. So it makes me wonder if the cyborgs of this future also have sort of brain chips or something that will, keep them in line or sort of alter their personality to be more loyal. And then there's the third type, which is the aforementioned transferring of a human consciousness into a fully android body. And the main character is named Wendy, and she is a 12-year-old girl dying of cancer who is suddenly put into the body of a 25-year-old woman. And she is the first crop of what we end up seeing is a group of children who are all transferred into new bodies. And that's a sort of fun element of this show, is that a lot of the characters are actually children, but they're rolling around as super strong robots.
Maybe our batteries just run out and we're like...
And while this is all happening on this trillionaire's private island, where he's running these sort of secret experiments, a ship, a Weyland-Yutani ship named the Mangonaut, has been out collecting samples of the most dangerous aliens that they can find, which of course includes the iconic xenomorph. The xenomorph, as it is known to do, escapes and causes a shit ton of havoc on the spaceship, causing it to crash into Prodigy City, which is the trillionaire. His name is Boy Cavalier. It's his kind of private industrial city, and that creates this sort of race where he wants to collect all of the Weyland-Yutani secrets that are on board, because it landed in his territory. So he ends up dispatching his new cyber children to retrieve it. Of course, this comes with a personal mission for Wendy, the main character, in that I was about to say younger, but her older brother, CJ, is currently in danger because he has been sent to the ship. He is a medic that is part of a Prodigy Marine unit, and they've been sent to rescue and help the people who have been affected by the crash, because the ship plows into a massive Judge Dredd style high-rise, which also gives us some variety in the visuals. Wendy is joined by her mentor, played by Timothy Oliphant. Oliphant playing a full synthetic who has been tasked with keeping these kids both safe but also on mission. And he is sort of got this kind of vibe about him where you're not really sure where his morality lies. He is introduced to us in a scene where he has captured a scorpion in the mess hall, and he's got it in this glass bubble. And the young Wendy, who is pre-transition to a robot body, I should say, is, talking to him about how it seems ugly and scary, so maybe we should kill it. And he's like, well, think about it from the creature's perspective. It's been captured in this glass jar, and it's been menaced by these giant monsters, which is definitely something that's going to come back. It's very on the nose with the alien creatures that have been captured in the Mangonaut. And that's another interesting aspect of this show, is we do have the traditional xenomorph running around, which is done fairly practically by a guy in a suit, which is both good and bad. I'll go over that a little bit more in a couple minutes. We've also got all of these other weird and dangerous aliens. One of the sort of main featured ones is called T. Ocellus, which you can see thanks to a readout. And the T. Ocellus is this basically roving, tentacled little eyeball monster that will burrow itself inside your skull and control you like one of the puppet masters from Robert Heinlein's Puppet Masters. I think that's a really interesting idea. It's got a very effective introduction, a very kind of creepy introduction. There is also these little crab bugs that will drain all of the blood out of your body, and then huffle off like little fat boys dragging their giant blood-filled butts behind them. And then there's this new thing that hasn't fully been developed or hasn't fully been unveiled yet, which is this giant hanging kind of floral pod. It looks like basically like a big unbloomed flower, and it's just hanging there ominously in a hallway. And at one point it's got this weird tentacle that comes out and kind of looks around, and I was sure that it was going to go down one of these characters' throats or something. But no, it seems sort of, I hesitate to say benign, but at least not actively hostile at the moment. And that's sort of the plot of the first two episodes, is this ship has been crashed into the city. You've got the Marines, the rescue team that's gone in to find it. You've got these androids who've also gone in to investigate what's happened. So let's get into sort of what I liked and what I didn't like, because it's a very, very mixed bag so far. And there's some elements that have me excited about what could happen, and there's some elements that sort of have me worried about what could happen. Starting with the good, the effects and the set design, the overall production value is absolutely amazing looking. This show has fully embraced the now retro future aesthetics that were very much more futuristic when the first Alien came out, but since then technology has advanced in a different way, and we don't have CRT monitors anymore, we don't have vector-based graphics on computers anymore, we don't have the sort of hard-edge cyberpunk industrial look being sort of futuristic anymore, so now this show kind of gives us that really great retro aesthetic. One of the details I really liked was their portable communication devices, their iPads, for lack of a better word, look almost like old school wood box CRT monitors that have been flattened, and they've got the wood paneling and the little knobs on the side, and it's just a lot of really great detail. They've done an absolutely stellar job recreating a lot of the original sets from Alien. You're going to see the mother white Christmas tree room, the main kind of computer room. Big nostalgic hit when I saw that. The corridors are almost a one-to-one recreation down to the way the grating reflects the light, the way it transitions from the more kind of slick upper levels down to the grimy pipe-filled lower levels. Even the opening scene of the show is a real big kind of nostalgia hit, because you have the exact same white dining room on the ship where everybody's sitting around having a big discussion about what their mission is and what they're doing, and sort of overlapping dialogue with a bit of hostility towards each other, really echoing the first act of the original Alien. Now they have that, and the other thing that they've added that I really like that's different is the high-rise that this ship has crashed into. It adds this new element and this new sort of juxtaposition to the stuff we've already seen. The high-rise itself, it has your kind of normal lobbies, normal big stairwells, and it's a new kind of location to see an alien crawling around in. It's something we haven't seen in this franchise, really, because this franchise, despite long teasing it, has never really fully gone to Earth. So seeing a xenomorph crawl around a sort of more normal or more relatable environment is it's really cool, and it does add sort of the visual variety of them transitioning from the building back to the ship, back to the building. At one point, the alien busts in on what I can only describe as the party from the movie High Rise, where it's a bunch of very rich, sort of out-of-touch assholes dressed as French aristocrats having, I guess, some kind of fuck the poor party. And then the alien busts in and rips them all apart, and it's very kind of fun. And the way it's set up when they come into the room, when the main character comes into the room, is also very fun, because everybody hasn't even really got it from the table, and most of the people are still sitting around the table completely dead. This show is also very gory. It does not shy away from the bloodier violence of the Alien franchise. You've got the aforementioned eyeball monster, which is introduced in a very gross scene where it's coming out of a cat's face. You've got the blood-sucking monster. You've got the xenomorph, which is just thrashing everybody it comes across. It's all very gory. I think there's also some really inventive stuff in there with regards to the sort of main A-plot being these kids being transferred into larger adult bodies. It is fun to see these adult actors acting as like 10 to 12-year-old kids, goofing around with each other, getting kind of scared, and at one point, one of the other kids spills the beans that Wendy is CJ's sister, and the way he does it is in that sort of just like very offhanded, spiteful little shitty way kids can just go, oh, what's the big deal? I don't understand the context of why this might be emotional. She's your sister, bro.
My sister's name was Marcy.
Dude, don't you dare.
That's your sister.
So I like all that. I like the characterization that's going on there. I like the sort of philosophical questions that are starting to be brought up by this idea where, their one character, the one scientist character is like, well, if we're just going to transfer people into new bodies without worrying about improving their quality of life, without improving their, ability to have a better future, all we're doing is making immortal consumers, which is, I think, kind of a fun breakdown of what sort of corporations would look for, as they would look for sort of some kind of infinite revenue, and you could get that from some kind of infinite chattel cast. So I liked all that. Visually, it looks really good. I think the best sort of visual sequence in the show so far is the scene where all the kids are being transferred into their new bodies. The way it's filmed, it's very flowy. It's done in sort of this one take. I guess it's definitely edited, but the way it's done is very interesting with the camera panning down and then back up, and you see another kid standing in the same line and then back down to a different person and back up. It's all very effective. Now, to get into what I didn't like and what really concerns me about this show, I don't feel like this show has really sort of elevated the alien material yet, especially when it comes to the titular xenomorph. The problem I see already is that they are really not holding back on the main xenomorph himself. We see him fully grown and fully fledged and very much fully in the lens within 30 minutes. You see it running around, jumping, you see it hanging off of ceilings, just in full view all of the time, which really takes away from what made the xenomorph truly scary in the first and even second films, which was the mystery around it, which was the fact that it was always lurking in the shadow and you never really had a full idea of both where it could be and sort of what forms it could take. Since then, the rules of the xenomorph have been very much solidified, fully to its detriment, I think. But the xenomorph is the star of the show, and they are not afraid to give it a lot of the screen time. I also think that this xenomorph, by far, so far, has the single largest body count of any individual xenomorph ever. Not only does it rip through entire squads of soldiers in a matter of seconds, it can seemingly take out, again, the aforementioned aristocrats. I think that happens. Basically, it kills it's got to be almost 12 people inside of 5 seconds. So it's a little too much. The thing is killed in the first 2 episodes, I gotta say, at least 20 to 30 people, which puts it far above any other xenomorph, any other singular xenomorph to ever appear in the franchise. I think the only other one that even comes close is the Alien 3 xenomorph, and I think that's because there's maybe 15 to 20 people on Fury 161, and even then most of those people end up dying in an explosion it creates, not directly by its hands. So far this is the singularly most OP alien we have ever seen in the franchise ever, by a far margin. And I think that the problem is that takes away from its terrifyingness. If we just see it just massacring everybody all the time, it's like, well, nobody really stands a chance against it. And considering how episode 2 ends, it will make it incredibly unbelievable when we find out that the character that was tackled by the alien in the last 5 seconds is still very much alive, because he's a main character who still has a lot of arc left to go. I also have some problems with sort of the murkiness of both Timothy Oliphant's character as well as this cyborg character running around. I think that they add too much of a potential element of the real villain is the robots. Timothy Oliphant seems very caring at first, but then that sort of disappears the second that that the main character ends up in a robot body, and then he becomes very sort of one note, very sort of we have a mission to do, we're going to go do this mission. He doesn't seem to really be much of a mentor yet, but maybe that's something that will change. I also think the sort of corporate war element of this with Weyland-Yutani and the Prodigy Corporation threatens to just delve into Blade Runner territory, which is something that I've been a little critical of the Alien franchise, especially under Ridley Scott, of becoming, which is it seems more interested in going into the robots are our children and yet they want to move past us element that seems more at home in a film like Blade Runner as opposed to Alien, which has always been a horror series. And that's the other thing, the main thing that I think is not been the best about this series so far, and that is that so far this series has not scared me. In 2 episodes, you've had a lot of action, you've had a lot of violence, you've had a lot of quick cutting and flashing, but because it's going over sort of well-trod territory with the alien running around and murdering people in hallways with big industrial pipes, and you see a lot of the alien, and you see sort of a lot of what else is going on, the series hasn't really had any sort of terrifying moments yet. They've had startling moments, it's had big action-packed moments, but for a show that's supposed to be a horror show, I have not gotten any sort of creepiness or scariness out of it. I think the closest it comes is the direct opening where we see the crew of the Mangonaut all sitting around and talking about their mission and kind of getting all this extra characterization, and they just have these quick cuts of like them being dead later on. But other than sort of the editing and the tone of the opening echoing the original Alien, it doesn't really build its own horror out of everything. So I would like to see the series actually get scarier, have maybe a scene or two of tension that doesn't just quickly devolve into people running from the alien monster. And I think that that's where you're going to get these new aliens being more effective because there's still mystery around them. There's still mystery around what the eyeball monster can do. There's a lot of mystery around what that pod is. So I would like to see the show focus on that stuff a little more, as opposed to sort of just delivering the standard Alien experience we've now gotten 8-9 times. But I do see the potential in this series, and I do think that so far there's been some really good stuff that's happened. I thought it was a little weird at first when we got all this characterization of this crew. There's a synthetic on board. They're not really trustworthy of their captain. There's the complaining Scottish dude who's very much echoing Parker and Brett. And then the next time we see the ship, supposedly everybody on board is dead. So I'm expecting maybe some kind of flashback episode where we see exactly how these monsters were both collected and how they escaped onto the ship, and I'm hoping that that sort of delivers more of the traditional sort of alien creepiness that comes along with the franchise. And also I am happy that, like, even though they've showed way too much of it, and even though the guy in a suit element is very clear on it, I am happy that we have one singular alien. It's been a long time, basically since Alien 3, that we've had a singular alien, and I feel like they've always been scariest when their numbers have been minimal. When you get a lot of aliens, like say at the end of Romulus, or even in Aliens itself, they become less of a threat because they become easier to kill. Which I guess, given how this one alien has ripped through 2 or 3 individual squads of soldiers so far, it really only makes the Colonial Marines from Aliens seem more badass that they were able to kill as many as they were. But yeah, so that's the first 2 episodes of Alien Earth. We're going to see more coming up this season, and I'm hoping that it leans a little heavier into the mystery. I'm hoping that it leans a little heavier into the sort of existential questions about immortality that it's teased at the start, and I'm hoping that it leans less into the fan service and less into just watching an alien run around murdering people. Because if I wanted to do that, if I wanted to see that again, I've got all of these movies and behind me I can go through and watch. So that's Alien Earth, episode 1 and 2. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want some more content from this channel. I've got a few videos up right now you can check out. But otherwise, just remember, stay safe and be who you are.